Welcome to Scaling in the Sand, the podcast where we unpack how leaders build, grow and scale businesses across the Middle East. I'm your host, Lloyd Creamer, founder of Ara Talent. Each episode, I sit down with founders, operators and executives who have built teams and companies under unique pressures, from rapid growth to regional expansion. We dig into what really drives scale in the region. Today, I'm joined by Ridaa Shah, co-founder of Daleel, MENA's first financial marketplace. Ridaa is an expert across all things open finance. Prior to finding Daleel, she led operations and HR for Tarabut Gateway, the region's leading open banking platform. We're going to be talking about the challenges of building in a regulated industry, the clutch control of product development with compliance restrictions, and her views on the changing FinTech landscape across the Middle East and what this means for Daleel. Ridaa, lovely to see you as always. Thanks for coming on. I've given a brief introduction, but I can never do it justice. So tell us a little bit about yourself and your background.
Hi, Lloyd. Thanks so much for having me. Great to be here. I think you've done a pretty good job covering kind of about me. But for those who don't know me, I have been in the Middle East my whole life. So I was born and raised here. I started off kind of my professional career in very traditional 9-to-5 banking corporate role in credit and risk. I was there for a good 3 years before I decided that I wanted to do something slightly different, which in all honesty, I don't think my parents are super happy about. But I kind of jumped into more of a people and culture role. So I went off, did my master's, and when I came back into the region, that's when FinTech was starting off and kind of just taking up.
What year would this have been?
That was around 2017, 18.
And you had studied abroad?
I'd studied abroad. I was in the UK for a couple of years before that. And then when I came back, I started off, funnily enough, with a British company that was looking to set up operations here operations in Bahrain, actually. I helped them set up from scratch. That was my first experience kind of just doing everything from the ground and building a company up. So that was more into big data, artificial intelligence, and kind of my start into FinTech and into understanding what all of that is about. Right after that, I joined my role at Tarabut, leading out operations, people, culture there, and it was brilliant. Kind of got to dip my fingers into absolutely everything that I could. Learned about open banking, about open finance. Worked with regulators across the region. So we started off in Bahrain. I was very much hands-on over there with the Central Bank of Bahrain. Then moved out here to the UAE. So we set up in Abu Dhabi, then in Dubai, and then we took it from there to Saudi. We also set up an entity in the UK. So I did a lot of that, a lot of hiring team from, all across. So we started off when I joined, we were about 8 people.
Oh, you were really early, yeah.
Yeah, and now when I think back, I remember the office being like a very quiet zone, like a library, and just like 2 or 3 offices being used. And then by the time I left, we set up a whole new office in Bahrain. We were about 80 people across. So it was brilliant, hiring people from all kind of juniors all the way up to being a part of C-suite hires and set up that. And while I was doing kind of Tarabut, this idea hit us, and that's where Daleel was kind of born. So jumped into starting my own venture. Not the easiest thing, but very exciting. And obviously we got brilliant support from all over. So
great.
Yeah, and that's what I'm doing now.
And we'll talk a lot about Daleel and the plans you have, and I know you're already quite a long way down the road. I'm interested in touching on some of the regional nuances. So you mentioned that when you first started, 8 people, only in Bahrain. And then when you left, offices across the GCC, different geographies, hiring people from all over the world. How did you find that experience of kind of popping entities up in other countries across the GCC, and any particular nuances around where it was more challenging, less challenging, where you felt was more welcoming or less welcoming to new entrants into the market?
That's a good question. So I think my experience setting up was pretty much similar across. I'm not going to say one was easier, one was harder. They all come with their own kind of set of, because we were a regulated entity and we were looking to get licensed, everything. So it's slightly different from, a non-regulated entity. Requirements in each, I think that's something very important to bear in mind. In the region, each area has its own set of requirements, has its own set of rules, has its own set of regulations. So keeping, after doing it the first time in Abu Dhabi, I think you kind of pick up, okay, these are the steps I need to follow and this is what I need to do no matter where I go. And so that was very handy for me. It's not that it was easier in one or harder in the other. I think each comes with its own set of requirements. We did have to set up teams everywhere. So that is a requirement that they have in most kind of, for most regulated entities. So when it comes to risk and compliance, when it comes to kind of your heads of finance, heads of legal, you do have to have them set up everywhere. So I think that's a little bit of, I won't say a challenge, but just a little bit more of a
more complexity
hurdle.
there, isn't there?
Yeah. Because when you can't centralize these functions, so that was that was very interesting to do in each of the regions. The other one is, I guess, building that relationship with the regulators as well. I mean, I'm not going to say I'm not going to pat my own back, but I think I did have a knack for it. We got lucky with kind of who we were in touch with. We got lucky with the account managers kind of that we had set up. So,
It's an interesting point that you touched on. I've never thought about it, but when I was recruiting in the UK and Europe, typically companies would centralise
absolutely
back office functions, right, or central functions. So you'd have HR, operations, legal, compliance, etc.
Yeah.
And like, I'm working with a FinTech at the moment who are applying for licenses simultaneously in Saudi and the UAE, and they have to have an MLRO for each region.
Absolutely.
Now, what would make sense would be to have one MLRO based in one of those regions, and then you've got double the cost now. I hadn't really thought of that. It's an interesting one to navigate, I bet.
Absolutely. We've actually had conversations, tons and tons of conversations with regulators, with individuals,
Really?
where, again, making sure that you are vocal about things with the regulators, being transparent with things helped, I think, us also build a very strong relationship.
Yeah.
Till date, we have great relationships with members in the central bank, in Bahrain, in DIFC. We have, here in the UAE as well. But we've had numerous conversations about this, where why can't there be a more centralized role that is accepted? Because as a startup, this is not an area that you want to be spending money on constantly, but you do also want to do that expansion aspect, right? Because it's natural. It's a natural flow of things. But yeah, it's an interesting one to kind of navigate, but very different from what is expected in the West. And I think a lot of companies or a lot of startups that are coming out here, a lot of fintechs need to bear that in mind, that is a requirement. And there's no kind of, as of right now, there's no way to look into doing that differently.
And how are you finding and now with Daleel, which we'll come on to talk about you guys more, I think also probably you had this experience with Tarabut, is you're in that kind of middle zone, I'd say, between you need the funding to afford the mandated people, but you need the mandated people in order to get licensed, which is the point at which you're likely to trigger more funding.
Yeah.
So you have a bit of a chicken and egg situation.
Yeah.
And so you need adequate funding to be able to get you there, to attract the right people who have got the correct qualifications.
Yeah.
But how do you do that with limited funding?
That's a good question. How do you do that with limited funding? I think the simple and very candid answer is you find a way.
Yeah.
You always find a way where you want to do things. I mean, where we are with Daleel right now is a similar situation, but you always do find a way. And again, with I think the three most important things with any regulated entity, you're kind of setting up somewhere. You have to be transparent with not just kind of the people you're hiring, with your potential investors, with the regulators, and kind of this is a scenario I'm in. How do I do, like you said, how do I continue setting up, but I don't have the team right now, or I need, whether it's a funding, however it is. I think open and transparent conversation is very, very important, and laying out your plans. So I guess because we kind of worked on with Tarabut before, we kind of had an idea. I think our plan was pretty much laid out, and we knew from a roadmap perspective, okay, this is how we want to start. Obviously, there are going to be things that change up, as is with any startup or that sets up. But we had a very high level plan set up already, that this is where we want to go to and this is how we want to be. And we've had that conversation very openly from the very beginning with the central bank here in the UAE and Bahrain, where, this is how we want to lay things out. So how can you guys support us? That's one thing that I will say about the region, that the regulators are very open. They're very understanding, very much open to conversation and helping, kind of startups set up, especially within FinTech, with so much changing. And I think this is a part of a conversation we're going to have, but so many kind of global entrants coming in, they're very, very open, very nimble to helping you out.
Yeah, they're definitely very welcoming.
Absolutely.
I think it reflects actually the culture of the whole country, in how the whole country, we're talking specifically about the UAE at the moment, is so welcoming to expats, right? We're 92% expat populated or whatever we are.
Absolutely.
In the same way, they're very welcoming to new market entrants. As long as there's contribution, right? As long as there's contribution to the economy.
100%, and healthy competition, always.
Yeah,
So.
yeah, for sure. So let's talk about Daleel.
Yes.
So I know about Daleel and what they do, but a lot of people watching probably won't. So so tell us about the company.
Absolutely. So Daleel is the first financial marketplace here in the region. So we give open access to individuals to look through all the different financial products that are available in the market, look through what is available, what might be best suited for you based on your needs, your requirements, and apply for it directly on the application. So that's what we do right now. We are working on a more personalized service for individuals. So as an example here, Lloyd is in a very different phase of life compared to Ridaa. So the kind of products that Lloyd needs and wants or might be suited for you are very different to what's suited for me. And our kind of system, Daleel's innovative system, is able to match you with the best product and show you. And on the other side, we're able to tell banks that, you know what, you have a customer like Lloyd who has X amount of money sitting in his account, who has this going on, who has that going on. How can you create a product that might be best suited for him? And that's where kind of our open finance aspect comes in, and that's how we're using open finance.
And you're in the licensing process
Yes.
for an open finance license.
Yes,
Great.
absolutely, at
Super
the moment.
exciting. And obviously the open banking and open finance space is still very new, right, really, in this region. I know that Tarabut were probably pioneers really in this region
Absolutely.
for sure,
Yeah.
but it's still quite new. So again, just kind of in layman's terms, I understand it, but what do we mean by open finance and open banking?
I think that's a very interesting question, because one of the reasons why I was so keen to do something slightly different or kind of go outside of working on a B2B aspect that was Tarabut was this question that a lot of my friends were asking me. So I'd worked, obviously I was with Tarabut for like a good 3 years. And even after that, I had not just my friends, my parents go like, but what do you do? But what is open banking? And I'd sit there and be like, that's a very valid question, because no matter what you do, the outside world still needs to understand. So I think it's as simple as what I said, giving open access to your financial data and financial information, obviously consented, making it easier for banks, for providers to give you products that are best suited for your needs, which makes aspects like personalization a lot easier to do. So something as simple as, not that this goes into open banking, but like how Netflix is able to tell you, Lloyd, these are the kind of shows you watch, and so here's another 10 set that might suit what you're doing. So we have a lot of that when it comes to Amazon. We have a lot of that when it comes to our Netflix accounts, when it comes to shopping, etc. But not when it comes to our to finance, simply put. And that's what we're trying to change, and that's what we're trying to break.
And obviously, like you say, we wouldn't think twice about Amazon giving us recommendations for things that we should buy based on our previous buying history. And we probably wouldn't think twice about going to a marketplace to buy car insurance.
Absolutely.
Or to check for good healthcare providers. But it feels very personal, right? Giving access to your financial information, because ultimately I assume that once regulated, the technology will have, as long as you consent, access to your bank accounts and your credit card statement or your credit cards and whatever. And so how's that challenge going to kind of manifest itself in terms of convincing people that it's okay to open the doors up to their financial world?
Absolutely. So we've had a lot of conversations. I mean, before we even started Daleel, right? You have to kind of do a little bit of market research. You have to understand. And exactly as you said, I had the same concerns. Like, why would I give someone access to my finance and access to my kind of financial information? I think that's a little bit of a barrier that needs to break in or open up in a sense. So growing up here in the region, and I know what the culture is like. I know what, I've grown up like that as well, where you just don't talk about finance. You don't talk about money as much, just because that's how you're raised. It's something private. You keep it to yourself, and that's it. I'm not going to tell you how much money I have. I'm not going to tell you how much money I don't have. But I think that's where we need to change things up slightly. We have massive young population. We have so many tech savvy individuals. And I think what needs to change and what needs to happen is more of this open conversation, which we've been doing with Daleel as well, to be able to help manage your finances better, just because it's the right kind of way to do. So to answer your question, which is how are you going to navigate that? I think we're already doing it. And I think the more conversations you have with people, you see how open they actually are to discussing it. When it's consented, kind of access that you give to your finance, when you know the entity is regulated, and when you actually see kind of the outcome, you understand that it's okay. It's okay to kind of give this information. It's okay to start. I think it's as simple as also when when digital banking kind of started, and I was hesitant, but when I started off and I was like, you know what? It's the way the world is going. It's where the region's headed towards. Even when you travel and you see it, you're like, okay, maybe I should see what it's about. And when you actually see the difference, so now, I don't have an actual physical bank where I bank with. All my banks are digital. It's made life easier. And when you actually see that change, I think it makes it easier for you to also accept and put your foot forward.
And I think when you look at where does the financial advice come from historically, right? It comes from your banker. It comes from a salesperson at the credit card company that you have
friends
a credit card from. It comes from friends and family, And I feel like it's either a bank or a company or a financial institution trying to sell a product or a service to you. And obviously they've got a vested interest in doing that.
Absolutely.
Or it's a family member who doesn't have a vested interest, but is arguably not necessarily as knowledgeable as you
100%.
should. So it kind of removes, it makes it much more neutral.
Yeah.
The advice is genuinely for you. And it's based on data, I assume, right? And based on proper
100%.
information and facts. So therefore, it theoretically will be the genuine best advice rather than just because somebody wants to give you that advice.
Absolutely. So as you rightly said, when we had conversations with people, everyday people here in the UAE and Bahrain, where we were like, where do you get your financial advice from right now? Or where, I'll just give you my example. When I had bank accounts in Bahrain, why did I have a bank account with a specific bank? Because my dad banked with them.
Yeah.
And he said, this is the best bank in the world. This is who you're going to bank with. And you don't question it, right? You're just like, yeah, he's my dad. He knows what's best, and that's it. It's only when obviously you grow up and you have more of these open conversations. Again, it's only because I had these conversations with people, and I was lucky enough to have these kind of people around me where I was like, okay, well, why do you bank with them and not with them? And how does it help you? Again, it might not be good for me because it's good for him or her, whoever this person is that banks with a specific bank. But it opens up your eyes to be like, okay, let me actually explore more.
Yeah.
Let me look at it more. And this is just my example that I'm giving you. There's so many more people out there that just continue to kind of do that. My siblings had the same thing, right? My sister banked with a specific bank because my dad said it was a good idea, or your friend says it's a good idea, or your uncle has said that's who you have to bank with, kind of a thing. Whereas yes, the kind of data that we collect or the information that you share with us about yourself. So Lloyd tells us that, I'm actually employed or I'm a business owner and this is how much money I make and this is how much savings I have, or we have access to that information. We can actually tell you what's best for you, and we can actually tell you, you know what, Lloyd, you might be banking with A bank, but B bank is going to give you this much more. And these are the benefits you're going to have with them. Or, you're just someone who likes to travel a lot, and you're using a card that's not actually giving you the best out of your travel. So we can tell you, Lloyd, you're traveling a lot, you use Emirates a lot, that here's a card from this bank that can actually help you earn more miles. And so while you're traveling, you can actually get another benefit from it. So it just helps. And there's so many other things happening in the world right now that sometimes you don't focus on one aspect and you just, you forget, okay, maybe there's a better card out there, which will get you more benefits.
Yeah, you just wouldn't know where to start
You
looking.
wouldn't know, exactly, because there's so much out there.
And if I think about the industries that have been disrupted by technology, it kind of feels like the natural progression of the next industry to be disrupted.
Absolutely.
When I first moved here 10 years ago, it was retail was being disrupted by e-commerce, right? It was pre-Amazon, it being in the region, and we had Souk, right? And then Noon arrived, Noon popped up, and then Amazon suddenly entered the market, acquires Souk, and that industry gets completely disrupted. We then had the disruption of the food delivery industry, right? Where it used to go from, when I was a kid, if you wanted a takeaway, you used to pick the phone up, call your local Chinese or Indian takeaway in England, and they'd come and deliver, and you give them £1 tip to the delivery guy, and then obviously that gets disrupted by your Talabats and your Deliveroos, etc. And we've had a period of FinTech. I think there was a big period around buy now, pay later firms, right? And that was disrupting. And it feels kind of like the natural next consumer industry that hasn't really been properly disrupted.
100%.
There's digital banking. But that's very different, right? Because they still have a vested interest in you taking their products and services.
Absolutely.
But actually, financial advice, effectively, it feels like a completely natural step.
Absolutely, 100%. I think the kind of 2 or 3 big areas that I see that change coming in is, number one, as you said, in finance, more personalization, more kind of products being sold to an individual because that individual will benefit from those products. And like you said, I think that is the natural progression. I think people are opening up to that idea and kind of understanding and seeing that, I want a product that's good for me. I want something that's going to benefit me.
Yeah.
And money now is it's such a huge thing, right? Like you want to do anything and everything possible to make sure you're A, making enough, and B, saving or investing, and all of those kind of aspects. I think the second one is AI, which is playing a huge kind of role and kind of coming in everywhere. I think AI and how that will turn into start to give you the right kind of financial advice. So I think there are going to be plenty of use cases that are coming out for that. Something as simple as if Lloyd is going out to buy, I don't know, I need new sneakers and I'm going to go to Nike to get something, and then
It's Adidas, but...
well, there you go. That going out to get his Adidas shoes, and your phone pops up, your AI goes, you know what? There's a brilliant offer at Nike, and maybe you never know, but that might be something that ticks your box.
Yeah.
And going, oh, actually, why don't I go do this? You just kind of jump into the next door. So I kind of see that natural progression with AI coming up with advice as well. I mean, I don't know about you, but right now I just jump onto my ChatGPT for absolutely every single piece of advice that I need in my life. So yeah.
And honestly, if I was going to be going and looking for a different credit card right now, aside from using a
Daleel.
product like Daleel,
Yeah.
you would go to ChatGPT just like you would used to go to Google and say, which is fine, but it obviously is not it's not curated, right? Like something like Daleel would be.
Absolutely.
So you've started this bit having been through a real scale up phase with Tarabut, multi-geography, open banking technology, hiring and nurturing a culture. All that experience then leads you to co-founding Daleel with PK, your co-founder.
Yeah.
And you're in a highly regulated industry. So before you can really start transacting, you can start growing, you can start doing all of the stuff that you've done at Tarabut that you're great at, you have to get to kind of point A first, right? Which means regulation.
Yeah.
So talk us through your experience of that in terms of going through the regulators and how you found that process so far, and I guess where you're up to today.
Absolutely. So we took a conscious call of kind of coming out here into the UAE, and
So you were, sorry to butt in, you were still living in Bahrain when you originally founded Daleel, is that right?
yes. Okay. So I was in Bahrain. I moved out to the UK and was there for a couple of years, and now I'm out here in the UAE where we're kind of set up. We have been, again, like I would just say, with kind of relationships we've been able to build over the past few years with Tarabut and even otherwise, we've been very lucky with the way, we have relationships with the central bank across the region. So we've constantly been in open conversation with the Central Bank of Bahrain, what our plans are, where we are headed to next. So we were very clear that the initial part of the business, nothing we were doing needed regulation, needed to be regulated. And that's, again, I guess, just a tip for, founders and other startups, which is if there is, because getting regulated is not a 2-day process. It's not a 2-month process. It can take quite a while from time to time. And I think you need to be realistic in those timelines, and you need to see, okay, if it is going to take X amount of time, what am I going to do in the meantime?
Okay.
And that's a conscious call that, again, we took. So what we're doing at the moment does not require us being regulated in any sense, but it helps us to, be out there, build our credibility, show people that we are actually here to do something that will benefit them. Because again, we are working with day-to-day kind of consumers. So yeah, we've always been in open conversation with the Central Bank of Bahrain, and now being out here, we are working very closely with the central bank here in the UAE as well. Again, very transparent, very open in terms of our conversation, very collaborative in terms of what we are kind of doing. We have done all of kind of our being regulated licenses, testing that we need to do, certifications that we need, all are kind of ticked out there. So yeah, the process is, it's a very, it's a, not smooth, it's a ongoing process. Not the easiest in the world, but nothing that we're struggling with, I would say. So
I guess it's just a lot of stages.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Again, it's regulation, right? To be regulated, it's not like anybody and everybody can come and get regulated every day.
Yeah.
You need to kind of get through those hurdles to make sure, and that's what gets you the credibility at the end of the day. And that's what helps, right? Like, that's why being regulated is so important. So,
and from a practical sense, you actually touched on this off camera when we were having a chat beforehand. I believe I'm right in saying that whilst going through that process of regulating, you set up an entity in a free zone anyway.
Yeah.
so that you could operate as a business. You could build an MVP. You could release a product. You could
Absolutely.
design a product roadmap
Yeah.
that wasn't going to interrupt or disrupt the process of going through the regulator.
100%. Yes.
So just talk around that a little bit, because it was quite interesting.
About building
About setting up as a separate entity first, so that you can at least operate.
Yes.
But then that entity not being in the same location or through the same jurisdiction as who you're then going to regulate through, because I guess you're regulating through the DIFC or...
No, to the central bank.
To the central bank.
Of the
but then
UAE.
you'll be set up in the DIFC at that point.
We will continue to be set up here in DMCC.
Okay.
Yeah. So again, this was an open conversation we had with the central bank, where we actually asked for advice, like, where do you think it's best? What do you suggest we do in terms of our setup? And they helped us, they kind of guided us, and they said, these are the different areas that you can look into. This would be beneficial. You won't need to move, or you will need to move afterwards. So as of right now, no, there's no requirement for us to move, even after we do get regulated. And yeah, we continue with, kind of the entity that we have just becomes a regulated entity.
Yeah.
It's very simple.
Cool. I suppose you just, from an outsider's point of view, you almost have this automatic expectation that if you're setting up a fintech business, you have to be in the DIFC.
Absolutely. And that's very interesting. So, and it's not just outsiders. I think we were under that impression as well. And it's only once we kind of came in and did a little bit more research and understood. And again, it goes back to how open the UAE is, how open Dubai is, right? With where you set up and what you do and all these different kind of free zones that you have available that actually do support startups, fintechs, and are building in that. And again, I guess becoming more open to allow more global entrants to kind of come in. So yeah.
Cool. Okay. What do you see coming in terms of emerging trends from the perspective of, it could be regulation and compliance, or it could be more industry trends, right? So we talked about what's been and where there's been disruption, what's happening right now. You're obviously in this world, you're speaking to the regulators regularly, speaking to the central bank. Are there any trends, anything that you're seeing as kind of being high on the agenda over the next 12 to 24 months that people who are currently thinking about setting up a business are going to have to potentially confront over the next couple of years that they might not have foresight of at the moment?
So I think a couple of things that I did mention earlier. Number one is more personalization.
Yeah.
When it comes to, financial products and within the financial world. I think personalization and working towards providing individuals with that. Number two was AI, kind of working with more of this personalization, AI working with finance. And the third thing that I kind of see, and this was a conversation I was having with PK earlier, which is a lot more embedded finance. So finance without actually seeing finance, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
As an example, if I was to go out and, getting a car, sitting over there getting, okay, this is a loan I want to apply for, that push coming in to say there is a better loan out there available for you to purchase this car, or whatever it might be. So it's finance, but not really direct finance. So more of an embedded finance there.
And when you're speaking to the central bank and the regulators, are they talking about AI? Is it?
They are, yes. There are conversations about it. Quite a lot of conversations.
Yeah. Interesting. I bet it's very high on their agenda as well. And the journey that you went through, Tarabut, just to put some numbers around that, 8 people when you started. How big was the company when you left, roughly?
About 80.
About 80. So 10x.
Yes.
What learnings do you have from those 3 years in terms of building, particularly from a people and culture perspective, which is obviously what you were pivotal in, that you're planning to take with you into this journey with Daleel? Perhaps things you didn't do so well that you've learned from, you're going to do better this time, or things that went really well that you plan to replicate?
I think when we started off, we were a very lean team, which is something that we're following here at Daleel as well. It was the most helpful thing I think that we had over there. To be very lean, constant kind of day-to-day conversations that you have with team members, and it needs to be a very collaborative culture that you build from the ground up. Because as you would know, being a startup founder as well, constant communication is very important. You need to know what other members of the team are doing in order to make sure the work that you are doing is right. You can't sit back and be like, let him or her finish what he's doing and then I'll start mine. It needs to be kind of collaborative and step-by-step process. I think some learnings or things that didn't go well, I think with any company, there's always going to be good hires, bad hires and stuff. You just kind of learn that you go with your gut in the very beginning. You know the kind of people you're looking for. You know the kind of individuals you need in the team. I always say, and this is something that I've said now as well, when PK and I kind of look to hire people, have as many rounds of interviews as possible.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people say, oh no, don't have more than 3 because it gets boring. I don't agree with that completely.
Tell Google that. 7, 8 rounds, right?
Absolutely. I fully believe that the more rounds you have, the more you get to learn about the individual. Obviously, it's always different when they're on the job, but the more rounds you have, the more you learn about the person and the more you know if he or she will be the right fit for you. Because the team that you build in the very beginning is a team that's kind of going to lead you forward. And we've been very lucky with a lot of the hires that we've done so far. They've been great in terms of the building the culture of Daleel and kind of walking with us. Because it's not a smooth journey, right? In the beginning, there's going to be so many hurdles. There's going to be so many ups, so many downs. But you need people who are going to kind of stick by you. And that's a big learning that I had with Tarabut as well. Again, over there, we were very lucky with most of the hires that we made. Obviously, there were 1 or 2 here and there that were not the best, but majority of the hires that we made kind of stuck with us through a huge portion of our journey. And
And that early stage founding team that you build are likely to be your leaders of the future, right?
Absolutely, 100%.
So we all know that one bad hire can create many more if they hire a bad team.
Absolutely. And just kind of contaminate the culture, I guess, as I like to say. Yeah.
It was something that always came out when, we did some work together when you were at Tarabut actually, was that it did, it's such a common phrase, but it really did feel like a family, didn't it?
100%.
Like we used to come in and see you guys and looked like everyone was having fun. It looked like we were having fun.
It was a lot of fun. And I think, it goes back down to the kind of people that you hire, right? You hire people who we were not shy. I've never been shy to say you need to hire people who are going to be better than you at different things. Because if you hire someone who's not better than you, then what's the point? If I'm going to do it better, what's the point of me bringing on board somebody else, right? So I was never shy to be like, he or she needs to be smarter than me. They need to do things better. Not just me, but other team members as well. And you build a strong team like that. And then when you communicate that to them, I think you're great at what you do and that's why you're here. It automatically builds that relationship. And so, we worked really well as a team, all of us together, whether it was heads of departments, whether it was kind of junior members of the team, whether it was our interns. It was very, very it was an open culture. It was very open communication, conversations always. If there's anything that goes wrong, which will happen, right, in any company, we're very transparent about it and tried to do whatever we could to kind of resolve those issues as soon as possible.
Yeah, it felt like that. That seeped out, I think. It felt like that from the outside as well, which I think is really important from like an employer brand perspective. Just quickly, actually, something we've not touched on but does come up quite often in these conversations is around the remote office or hybrid working world, right, that we live in now.
Yeah.
How did you do that with Tarabut and what are your views on that moving forward?
So how did we do that? There was a lot of remote working because obviously we had
middle of COVID
teams
as well.
Sorry, it was COVID. Yeah. There was a lot of COVID, a long period of COVID. What's it called? So we did have, and obviously, like I said, we had teams all over. So we had teams in the UK, we had teams here in different parts of the Middle East. So there was a lot of kind of remote working, but we had, we made sure on a monthly basis to have, even if it was just Zoom calls, to have team Zoom calls where we had fun activities. And again, when I say fun activities, I mean actual just fun activities. We made sure our CEO joined as well and was a part of the fun. Made him laugh, made him kind of joke around a little bit, which again builds the culture and makes it easy for people to have those kind of conversations. Do I fully support remote culture? I think it's one of the best things that kind of came out of this, because it shows you that you can work remotely. But I do also strongly believe you need to have some sort of office feel. So that's something we proactively did, which is we would set up kind of physical offices, and we made it a point. And I guess this is also a learning that I took from it, which is X number of days a week, you need to go into the office and work out of the office. And it needs to be everyone that goes collectively, so that you're able to, again, build that team culture. And they also are aware and they know that, okay, I work for a company and I'm here to do work. And it's not just me sitting at home in my pajamas, because let's be real, if you're working remote, you're sitting in your pajamas on your bed, on your laptop. But
dress shirt on the top, pajamas on the bottom.
Absolutely. And that was another important thing, which is make sure your cameras are on during video calls. I know not a lot of people, including myself, are big fans of that, but I think it's important to kind of have that. But yeah, I don't think it's fair to kind of just take away remote culture just because, as soon as COVID ended, I don't know if it's ever actually ended, but whatever, it came to kind of stop. A lot of companies took back their remote policies and remote working policies, and no, you have to come into the office. I don't think that's fully fair after having given that flexibility, and that's my personal stance on it. I think it's good to kind of have that as an option, because it makes things a lot easier for families, for just individuals as well. But I think it's important for people who are working remote to also respect the kind of policies that the organization company has. And that's something that we worked really hard with at Tarabut as well, to make sure that, okay, these are the policies. And it's kind of a process, right? You build it as you go. You see an issue and then you're like, okay, great, we need to resolve this, and this is the policy we set. So that's something that we've taken with us here to Daleel as well.
I think we're quite lucky in this part of the world to some degree, because obviously it felt like, living through COVID here, it felt like COVID was shorter but more extreme from the perspective of lockdowns and restrictions. But what that meant was we didn't have this prolonged period of people working remotely in and out of lockdown like they had in the UK, where it was just you didn't know whether you're coming or going. I know now from lots of friends that have got companies or work for companies in London, there's massive challenges getting people back to the office because they've had such a long period of remote working that now that they've set their lives up in such a way that they're not used to commuting and going back to the office. And I do think that in this part of the world, it never went that far. And so there is still a generally accepted culture that you're going to be going to the office a reasonable amount of time. Yeah. It might be 2 days a week, it might be 5 days a week, it might be something in between, but it's something that I think will stand this region in good stead. Because I agree with you, I think some degree of office working is essential.
I think it goes back to this region's been so flexible in so many different terms and so many different ways. And I think this is one of just another way in which companies here, individuals here, offices here have been flexible with their teams. I know because kind of my husband working in the UK, a lot of his family, obviously his sister, etc., all of them work out there, and they said the same thing. They were like, as soon as kind of we felt like COVID ended, they were like, okay, everyone stop kind of remote working, come back into the office, because there's no such thing as remote working. But once you've given individuals that flexibility and you know that it can be done, I don't think it's fair to just kind of pull back and be like, nope, sorry, can't do this anymore. Just come back the other way. I think flexibility needs to come from both ends. And that, again, builds on the culture, right? That's what makes it easy for people in your company to be like, oh, wow, my company trusts me with this, so I'm going to, give my best.
Agreed. So, agreed. It's give and take.
Absolutely.
A last thing I want to touch on, because you've briefly mentioned family, you briefly mentioned your husband.
Yes.
Obviously, you're a new mum.
Yes.
For founders out there that are in the early stage of trying to build a business whilst having their first child, any views on that experience? How have you found it?
Don't do it.
You don't mean that.
No, I think I have a knack for just planning to do a lot of crazy things at the same time, which is when I started Daleel. We started Daleel in January of 2022, and I got married in March of 2022.
Right.
So, two massive changes, and then obviously I moved countries. None of that means Daleel stopped it anyway. I mean, I'm going to say this, and it's going to be very controversial, or I don't know, just start some kind of chat. But women, I think, have a knack for multitasking.
I completely agree.
And I like to think that I'm one of those women. And we have this conversation between me and PK all the time. PK being, you know, a kind of a guy and a co-founder, and me being a woman and a co-founder, me doing several different things. And he goes, let's focus on this. And I'm like, okay, great. But I can also do X, Y, Z. And he goes, I don't know how you do all these 3 different things and make notes and have pointers while I'm just sitting there doing one thing. No, he's great as well. Don't get me wrong. He's brilliant. But I think it's just about having the right kind of support system around, having the right. I've been very lucky, again, with kind of the co-founder that I have with me, who's been insanely supportive throughout my journey. I've been very lucky with the kind of husband I have, who has been very supportive, to be like, yeah, go ahead, start your company. It sounds great. And then, yeah, just you need to be able to multitask, I think. And you also need to be able to pull back and just sit down when you need to. But that, again, requires a supportive team and goes back to building the right kind of team and culture, right? So I have that in my team, and I'm very blessed, very lucky that I do, that when I need to sit down and be like, guys, I need to kind of rest my brain a little bit, I have people who are picking up things here and there. That doesn't in any way mean that I stop working. I think I'm a little bit of a night owl as well.
Yeah.
So when kind of I put my baby down, I'll open up my laptop and be like, okay, let me just do a few things here and there. I've always told the team to, you know, even if it's midnight and you remember something, leave me a message. Send, whether it's a text message that you send me, whether it's a Slack message, just leave it there. I'll take it when I can, and I know I'll do it, but just, you know, send me a message. So I had, you know, I had our Salwa, our kind of product lead, messaging me last night, sending me like a whole bunch of things. She's like, I'm sorry, I know you're away and I know it's late, but I have to tell you, sent me a whole message with pointers. And I was like, that's great. I'll get to it first thing tomorrow. So having that open conversation.
Do you know what though, Ridaa? It might feel like a small thing, but it's actually huge. Because that basic bit of communication that says, you can always message me. I might not respond straight away, but you can.
Yeah.
Because I guarantee you there's people in your team, you are their boss and the co-founder, who otherwise would have been sitting there going, I don't think I should, because it's National Day and Ridaa's with her baby and her husband and it's the wrong thing to do. And all the time you might have been sitting there going, no, it's fine. 100%. It's fine, you can message me anytime. I might not read it straight away, but you can always message me.
Absolutely.
And it just comes back to open communication.
100%. Yeah. And we did the same thing at Tarabut, right? I would like to believe that if you go today and you ask anyone, they would tell you that. But we always left lines of communication open, and we always said, guys, you know, message whenever, send us whatever it might be, and we will do what we can to kind of, if it's a problem, we'll resolve it. If it's an issue that can be dealt with immediately, we'll do that. If it needs some time, if it's a task that you need me to do and it's pending on me, tell me. Because yes, I am at the moment I am the co-founder, but I'm also an employee because I'm also working there. So you need to tell me when I need to do something, to be like, Ridaa, this is pending, this is on you. And I think I kind of took a lot of that from our CEO as well, where he would say at Tarabut, Abdullah was very open to be like, you know, if there's something pending on me, tell me that this is pending on you. If you don't do this, I'm not going to be able to do my work, and I will do what I can to make sure that it's done. So my advice for founders would be, do it. It's great. It's a lot of challenge, big challenge, but...
And get used to sleep deprivation.
A lot of sleep deprivation. I woke up this morning to come for the podcast, and my very kind husband looked at me and said, "You look a little bit tired."
Oh, that's nice.
It's a video podcast, and I was like, "Thanks so much. That's great to hear." And he's like, "No, but you will do great. Go for it."
You've dug the hole now. It's too late.
Absolutely. So I was like, "Thanks," but again, honest communication is what helps.
Maybe. There's a time and a place. And what I can tell you is, my kids are a few years older than yours, as you know. But somebody said something to me, somebody who had founded a business a few years ago said to me something that really stuck with me, which is, you'll feel like you're depriving your children of your time and your energy and your effort at times. But that's a feeling that you have.
Absolutely.
It probably isn't a feeling that they have, because for them 20 minutes of your time is everything, right?
100%.
It doesn't need to be a half day. It doesn't need, and what's actually more important is that you instill certain ethics in them, which is hard work. Mum worked hard. She went to work early in the morning. She did late nights. She grafted and she built a business. And that is going to build so much more in terms of your DNA of your children and hardwiring
100%.
them than, taking the easy route, right? And not doing that.
And at the end of the day, we do what we do for our kids,
Course,
right? We're building what we're building. What I'm doing now that I see my daughter, I'm like, this is for you. And I want to, and same, you're absolutely right. Like, I want to instill that in her. I want her to know that she can go do whatever it is she wants to do, but it takes hard work. It's not easy. And I guess that comes to me from my parents, from the way my dad worked really hard, from the way my mom worked really hard, whatever it may have been in. Yeah,
and you have those memories, right?
100%. And you're right, 20 minutes of, not even 20 minutes of undivided attention is better than like half a day of, I don't know, ups and downs. And
checking your phone and not really
sorry,
being there.
I just kind of got to take this and
Yeah, I totally agree. It was lovely to catch up. Thanks so much for coming in. Thanks for all your insights. I'm sure it's going to be very valuable to
Thank you so much.
a lot of our listeners. For our listeners, if you enjoyed this episode, follow Scaling in the Sand wherever you get your podcasts. Connect with us on LinkedIn for more stories from leaders shaping the region's growth. I'm Lloyd Creamer, and this has been Scaling in the Sand.